hopefully my two colleagues are going to join me now. Gregory, is that you there now?
Hello.
Hello, welcome Gregory. How are you doing? And I'm hoping
I'm very fine.
good. And I'm hoping my other colleague Mena should be there, but I can't see him at the moment. We'll wait. Oops. Okay, so we'll wait for him when he's on there. So, dear listeners, this is the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And we have a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is what it is to be homeless. I'll say it again, what it is to be homeless. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here, you can contact us on this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, just talk, we always say where you are and how the weather is. So I want to tell you, I'm here in North London. It's been raining today. It's been, sometimes it was a little bit heavy, sometimes it was not so much rain, light rain, and then it's been overcast. So please tell us where you are and how's the weather there.
Well, I'm in Walden and it's been raining, but not much.
Okay.
It's overcast also, but it's okay.
Worthing. So did you go to the beach?
No.
No. Okay. But welcome to UK, because you're normally in Brussels in Belgium. So thank you for coming, visiting us here. Yes. Okay, dear listeners, I want to start as we do normally to tell you what is the Grail message. The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abdushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, I want to remind you again, the topic for tonight is what it is to be homeless. And you can join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it's 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Okay, Gregory, are you still there? I think I've lost you. I'm going to put you back. 1 second. Hello, Gregory, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, just I think Mena tried to call, and I'm just going to make put him online now. Right, here we go. Hello, Mena, are you there now? I think we're still getting him online. So just be a little bit patient with us, listeners, while we are waiting for that. I think he's here. Hello, Mena, are you there? Hello, Mena, I think you're on mute. Oh, we lost him again. 1 second, one more. I'll try again. There we go. Again, apologies, listeners, for the delay, but we'll be starting in a minute as soon as I can get Mena back here. Yes. Mena, are you there now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, welcome. Sorry. Welcome. Yeah, we were waiting for you, but I think it was a little bit of a technical issue. So welcome. How are you? Yeah. Where are you? And how is the weather where you are?
Yeah, the Heartland. I mean, it's been raining and, cold. Well, it's been a fantastic day. Well, a bit of rain, but very good. Sunny as well.
Sunny as well. Okay, welcome. Gregory's already with us, so we can start now. The topic, to remind everybody again, what it is to be homeless. And Gregory, you know the word, I mean, it's a really, this, you can say this question, to be homeless, is such a heart-rending sort of sensation when you talk, when you think about this question. And home, the word home itself, it's such a emotional almost word. In there, so many things in that word, home. So I think maybe we should start with defining the word home. What is what is a home? Let's start with that first. And how do we define a home? Is it, and also listeners, we are talking on a spiritual topic, so we normally think of home as an earthly thing. So Gregory, if you can highlight those sides, the earthly side, and maybe there's a spiritual aspect as well. So can you tell us what is a home?
Basically, a home is an abode, so which could be a place, which could be a house, but it's a particular neighborhood that one feels or one senses connection with, where one can unfold his or her inner perception without being disturbed. For some, that place, home, could be a village, could be a town, could be a city. For others, it could be even the forest. People feel at home in the forest. But when the expression or word home is mentioned, it points to a particular abode where that personality is able to unfold to unfold of his inner perception.
Thank you for that answer. And
Yeah,
let's. Oh, Mena, you want to say something? Go on.
yeah. Can can I indulge Gregory to expand on it more? Could it not be a home is a place of origin, a place where you originate from? Uh, would that not be a more clearer definition of home? Because if we take home to to be widespread, that it could be um, the forest or house. It doesn't actually tie you to a particular place. It just puts you everywhere. So could we not, say a home is a place where the core originates or the real essence of the person originates from?
Well, like one keeps stressing, the idea is to build up one little step at a time. So when you are mentioning where one originates from, consider the scenario where a particular person originates or is born in a war zone where there's so much war. And if you ask that person, say if the war has been going on for years, say 5, 10, 15, 20 years, like you have in different parts of the world, if you were to ask that person, will you call that place home? There will be some hesitation. For where the spirit is able to unfold itself, depending on the environment, that is what points to home. Otherwise, you'll find that when there's so much violence and things like that, many, wherever they were born, are not likely to call such places home.
Yeah,
Gregory.
I'll agree with you. But if you want to take the human spirit, for instance, as on a journey, it tells you that wherever it finds itself here, it's not necessarily a home. It's just, a temporal residence or habitat on its onward journey, on its journey through creation. That his home is actually where his core.
Precisely.
Yeah, good.
What we were doing is to build up one little step at a time. Else, the possibility is there to start from the initial abode.
Yeah, good.
And don't forget, there are many listening to these discussions, and there are some who are listening for the first time. And therefore, the need is there to put one little block at a time rather than jumping into the whole thing and providing the possibility of confusion.
And,
Yeah,
Gregory.
I'll agree with you. But if we do not clarify the picture from the start, you will run the risk of actually giving the listener a kind of comfort. That where he is actually a home, where. Okay.
The original discussion, what was provided,
Yeah.
um, it's implicitly clear, and you need to build gradually and then return home. Were we to start from the spiritual, then you have the situation where those who are listening for the first time do not have the proper concepts. These concepts have to be built up gradually. And that's why one strives to put these things in bits. The journey from the earth back to the origin, which man may call home, is not just one step, but a sequence, a series of steps, of gradual steps. Some could be in leap and bound. But we will get there. At the end, hopefully, a clearer picture of what home is or could be will emerge.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I just in your initial or earlier answer, I should say, you mentioned people are born into war zone and they wouldn't call it home. And I must say, there was an interview of some of such people, children, who were interviewed about that. And well, let's say when they were born and they were being raised, and they still considered their war zone as a home, but of course they were not happy that the state of that home, you know, because they feel they are attached to that place, especially the parents bringing them up there. They feel that and they want to be part of that place. But of course, as you say, it's not exactly a place where you can really I've forgotten the exact word you used, that let's say I don't know what you would use, peaceful, but it's not the ideal place where you can bring somebody up in, you know, with them to develop yourself. So I completely acknowledge that. It's just that the place of your birth is still like your home in a sense, because you feel attached to it. It's just not peaceful. That's the only consideration.
One should be very careful in confusing intuitive perceptions. There is the perception of the abodes or the area through which one incarnated. And because of one's incarnation in that particular neighborhood, one needed to learn the necessary lesson. And then, thereafter, one moves forward. If the incarnating spirit has experienced such harrowing experiences and moves forward, then he needs not come back there. For one must consider the case of a journey. The case of a journey, you started from somewhere. Here on earth, one may say the spirit or the human being in physical body, in flesh and blood, started or originates at birth in order to experience, in spite of the fact that it has accumulated many other experiences. But it is still a journey, which journey must have started somewhere. And when it started that journey, there must have been an urge for it to experience externally, so in order to be able to develop its innate abilities. So basically, what you have when the word home is mentioned, many reflect on those areas where they themselves are able to unfold. There are some who leave their place of birth and go very far away. And in their experiences, they are able to unfold, and they call such places home. Whereas if you took them to where they were born, it seems strange to them because they have left those harrowing experiences behind, and they wouldn't want to sort of identify with such violence and such wickedness.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. I want to go into something a little bit, let's say, moving away from that now. I just want to, in terms of talking, being homeless, let's say.
Yeah. So in that case, where would you want someone to actually define or claim as his home? If perhaps you were born in a war-torn region, and that is where you were born, and you, because of the harrowing incidences that are happening there, you have no attachment to that place. Does it now gives you the right to denounce that place as home?
There is no need for any denouncement. It is said, home is where the heart is. Then you must ask yourself, can the heart be in violence? Can the heart be in war? Surely, if one acknowledges that home is where the heart is, the heart, which is the center where decisions are made, and to be able to make beautiful or decisions which will be of benefit, then the need for a calm neighborhood, the need to experience calmness and self-communion is paramount.
Yeah.
So if one reflects very carefully, then one would know that whatever experiences one have on earth, these are only transitory, and one should not, in quotes, peg himself. After all, why must we say the world is our home when we know that there is time to be born here in the physical, and then thereafter there is the transition. So there is the incarnation, and then there's the death, which is a form of transition. So you cannot call that which is transitory home. You can only call that which is permanent. That place where one is able to unfold his innate abilities in accordance with the laws of creation through which he himself or herself came into existence.
Yeah. Thank you, Gregory. I'm trying to, really go with you to say that, perhaps if I find peace and tranquility in my neighbor's house, then I can perhaps call that place my home. Otherwise, my house is war torn down on fire. I don't think so. But let us say, could it not
No,
be? Yeah, could it? Yeah,
what you haven't considered is that you yourself
yeah,
should make a place or an abode a home, which means you should allow your innate abilities to come to fruition and prepare this place in accordance with the will of Him who has created you by allowing those innate abilities to come up. Most of the time, in a violent neighborhood, those innate abilities do not develop as they should. So you have that when a personality is too indolent, to challenge himself to build a home. Then he moves from one place to the other and he finds excuses for not being able to build a home.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Dear listeners, I just want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we are discussing tonight is what it is to be homeless. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Gregory, I've got a question from a listener now.
No, yeah. Let's now clarify the. Assad. Let's now clarify the concept of homelessness. Let's see how. What we want to consider as being homeless.
Okay, maybe this might help because this is a question listener. I haven't read this question, by the way, but I'm just going to read it out now. So the listener is saying, to be homeless is to have one's country. To be homeless is to have one's country taken or invaded by people or cultures who have no right to be there, such as happened to the indigenous people of Australia, Canada, America, and now one might even say Europe. This is displeasing to God, as all nations should stand side by side for the benefits of all peoples of the world, and all cultures, that is where the destiny lies. I'm just going to read that again, just to get clarity about it. So, in fact, I don't think it's really a question, it's a statement, when I read it now. So, if I read this again, to be homeless is to have one's own country, I'm going to add a little word, taken or invaded by people or cultures who have no right to be there, as has happened to the indigenous people of Australia, Canada, America. And now one might even say Europe. This is displeasing to God, as all nations should stand side by side for the benefit of all the peoples of the world and all the cultures. That is where their destiny lies. So Gregory, I don't know if you want to make any comment on that, or that statement.
Well, there is the case during the time of Moses where you had the people of the Jews who resided in Egypt, and they underwent such terrible suffering. They were born there. That is their country. Or is it not? Was it not? Yet, given instructions from above, they had to leave that neighborhood to a newer place where they could continue to reflect and allow their innate abilities to come to fruition, which today or at that time, that particular land was called Israel. How would one then understand that a place where one was born, where they were being slaughtered, and yet seeing the tumult in their souls, they were granted the opportunity to migrate somewhere. So when some of these statements are made, one has to reflect very quietly and not that superficially.
Thank you, Gregory, for your how can I say,
Yeah.
highlighting
Thank you,
that,
Greg. Yes,
highlighting as an aspect, which people may not be considering. So yeah, go on, Mena. Go ahead.
yes. Given that overview,
I've texted you.
clarity,
One
our
second.
picture of
Text
the home,
you.
not necessarily being where you were born. Could you not expatiate on that? To clarify the picture that man is actually on Earth as a a guest sojourning in order to gain experience, and not necessarily to delineate a particular area as as his own. Uh,
Actually, if one had been following very gradually, that is what is being referred to when one mentioned that there is the time to be born, to incarnate, and to make use of that tool which has been prepared for it by parents, which is the physical body. And after a period in time, there is the departure. And one then went ahead and said, the stay here on earth is sort of a temporary thing. Because it's temporary, one can't even call this place home. Home, like one stressed, is where the heart is. The heart typically is of spirit, and that which is of spirit may only refer to a place as home back from where it originated, where it does not need to wander around in order to gather experiences to be self-conscious. But this is a gradual process. This world, like has been mentioned in many songs, is not our home. It's only an abode that one needs to use on a temporary basis. And before too long, this world, which is in the world of matter, will go back to its primeval state. That means there will be disintegration. So it is necessary for the human spirit to wander very carefully to gather experiences which will be useful to it in accordance with the laws through which it came into existence, which experiences will be useful to it back home. Home in the sense of the spirit, not a temporary abode of a traveler. For here on earth, many move from one place to the other. In fact, the earth is more of a global village. Many a person who is living in Europe who might have incarnated in Australia or in America or in different places. All these are temporary abode in order to gather experiences. And many have a sense of being drawn to this place in order to experience these places again, to complete certain cycles. But to make it simple, things have to be taken one little step at a time, else there will be confusion.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Yeah, I think we just got to, when we use this word home, we've got to remember we are here on this earth, and we are a spirit which doesn't come from this earth. We are living on the earth, but we don't come from this earth. So if you want to, Mena, as you were saying, talk about our origin, or the home being our origin, then of course earth cannot be the origin if the earth is not. But at the same time, as Gregory's mentioned, we have to go step by step, because the listeners would not, let's say, necessarily be aware who exactly we are, where our origin is, and in that sense where the home is. So I think we just got to discuss one aspect, each aspect on its own, and then we build a whole picture from that. So, and I think the best thing is always to start from where we are now. We are not in the spiritual, we are here on the earth. So if somebody says, where is your home? If somebody asks you, let me say, I ask you a question, where is your home? What will be your answer? If I ask to you, like somebody on the street, where do you know, normally they say, where do you live? But you could say, oh, where is your home? How would you answer that?
It might point you to a house, or to any place of or any habitat, so to speak. Yeah.
Right.
Or a house, or a habitat where he or she is living.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Could
again,
be
that's why
anywhere.
That's why what I want to do is, if you're going to say, we must know when we are talking about the word home, we're referring to the earthly, or we're talking about the spiritual. I actually want to make that specific, and we say it.
Yeah.
And then Gregory, I know you have mentioned is home is where the hearth is, and that's point to your origin. And so of course, but I think we are building to that point right now. So let's. Mena, you mentioned earlier about what is homelessness, because that is actually the title tonight, listeners. What it is to be homeless. First, I wanted to know what is a home, and then the next thing is being homeless. So, and the first, let's say when you're traveling on the underground or even in the street, you see people begging who are homeless. I would say the majority are, let's say, genuinely homeless, and they look quite in a bad way. And obviously in this winter time now, or cold, winter time, autumn, winter, it's quite hard for them to be sleeping outside. And I think most of us haven't experienced that situation. So in a way, let's talk about homelessness. What is homelessness? And so Gregory, again,
Yeah, before Gregory comes in, can I quickly chip in? It's also I think at this point we now begin to see that, what we are claiming as home, not necessarily home per se, but places of, temporal residence, as a human spirit. You're here in a nature's sphere as a guest. And, wherever you place, perhaps, because we do have that attachment to where we were born or where we find comfort, we claim that place as we take that place as a home. But we should, as human spirits, recognize our origin and know why we're here on earth. It is very paramount for us to do that, because in doing that, we begin to know, or begin to recognize our purpose here on earth. And when we want to perhaps, let's say, create a paradise on earth, or make perhaps, turn this earth place into a copy of where we've come from, we should begin to understand that it is making it a place of, making it a copy of where we come from, and not necessarily owning it as, as our place of origin. Because, nature's sphere it belongs to the nature. It belongs to the nature beings. Can I say the nature beings? Yeah, both the conscious and the unconscious beings. This is actually their realm of it's their world. We are merely guests and cannot take over this earth from them at all. We can make it, a paradise, but not necessarily um, uh, own it as such. I don't know if I'm making a clearer picture of what we're driving at. Because, when we begin to talk of, homelessness, I want to also begin to establish that, perhaps it doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily follow that if you're born into harsh circumstances where you do not have, well, a shelter over your head, you are actually homeless. It's just an experience. It could, it could be that is what is, designed for you, or what you've actually, accepted to go through as a part of the experience.
Thank you for that.
Uh,
Yeah, Gregory, do you want to say something? Okay, I think Gregory must be on mute. Are you on mute, Gregory? Hello, Gregory.
Oh, yes. I said, could you ask the question again?
I think. Oh no, I wasn't a question. Yeah, no, sorry. It was just to say if you wanted to respond to what Mena has been saying there.
Well, the word homelessness is used very wrongly. What is meant here, you see, the expression homelessness is one, but what is being referred to is the lack of residence on a long-term basis. But what you then have, because when you look at people on the streets, because they do not have a very long time, a long place of residence, and so you now have the situation which they refer to as homelessness. They are not homeless because the word home is very different from what is being used. And again, it has been revised to be lack of shelter on a long-term basis. So home, strictly speaking, is more of a spiritual context. And the lack of shelter where one is what has now been, termed homelessness. But at the same time, once you realize that the scenario has only precipitated through the volition of those people who are involved in this lack of long-term residence. For there are some of them who are offered the opportunity, but deep within them, they reject these opportunities. There are others who leave their country of birth or of residence, and they do it in such a way that they themselves have to, pay so much price to go to another country. So one must ask those particular ones why they have made such journeys. There are some where places where there's so much turbulence due to war, and they leave such neighborhoods and go somewhere else in search of more permanent residence. Only when one has found a place, only then can one make that particular place a home where he or she is now able to exercise his innate abilities. Else, it will be like a soul, yeah, who is driven from one area of turbulence to another. And in such a case, he or she is unable to unfold that which is in it, because the possibility of such unfolding is very rare. So one has to distinguish between what is referred to today as homelessness and the lack of temporary residence.
Yeah.
Many lack the residence, and although the usual word nowadays is homeless.
Yeah. Thank you, Gregory. Can you look at different geographical regions around the world, and you find out that human spirits actually born into actually are incarnated in such regions, and begin their development in such areas. They become attached to those areas. I think, would you not consider it nature's design for them to be in that area to fully gain spiritual consciousness, or was it also designed for them to move around into areas where they are not they're not how do I call it, native to also gain experience? What is the full design spiritually? As
When you
yeah,
when you mention the word design,
yeah,
the question is whose design? The human spirit has the innate free will to make decisions,
yeah,
which lies in free volition. The
and
manifestation of this volition varies from one person to another. Such manifestations may be referred to as the personal desires or personal design.
yeah,
That is completely different from the weavings of nature.
yeah,
So it is not that one is born in one place and should
mhm,
remain there. Where one to follow such a logic, it means, therefore, you were born in a house.
yeah,
You remain in the house. You remain in the neighborhood. You remain in the village because, in accordance with many people's perception, that place you were born is where you should experience. Far from it, very far from it. Were that the case, then on a spiritual level, the human spirit that has arisen in the paradise of man as an unconscious spirit gem need not have left. It would have remained there. But that was not the case. It needed to journey out in order to gather experience and to experience in accordance with the will, which made provision for the human spirit as an unconscious spirit gem to journey far away in order to learn and allow those innate abilities to come to fruition such that it becomes a self-conscious spirit. In a similar fashion, you do not remain in the same spot that you were born, or the same house that you were born, or the same village that you were born, or sometimes the same country. The need is there, which many sense within them, to journey out in order to gather experiences. So it would be utterly wrong to prevent many who wish to experience or gather experiences in different areas. What you then would have had will be there will be no need for one to leave one small enclave, which is called a country, to another. So one has to be very, very reticent, has to be very careful in one's reflection and thinking that because you were born in a village, therefore you should experience in that village and you shouldn't move further.
Right.
For after all, the whole of Earth is more of a global village nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with you. See, Gregory, one when as you begin to develop, you will find that there is a law in nature, and that is the law of cycle. It's if we actually begin to work in accordance with this law, you know that the human spirit originated from a paradise and has to return back there in accordance with the law of cycle. Although, after acquiring the spiritual consciousness or having fully become self-conscious, I want to argue that if a man originates in any geographical region, it is and begins to develop his abilities there, and at one point in time travels out, should, in accordance with the law of cycle, return back to where he came from. It's my little logic, because you find that what sustains that body is not going to be something that is going to be outside where that's a geographical region. What would fully nourish that body is only going to be found from that geographical region from where it was born, or where its origin, nature, and where that spirit or where that body is um, nature to. Because we must, also recognize how the elementals or the nature beings have actually developed this body to this state. And if we don't want to, follow that rule, which they have, followed to develop it to the state where it was, or begin to gallivant around the globe because we now have means of transportation, I don't think we'll actually achieve our purpose. I stand to be corrected, though.
Mena,
It is not a matter of being corrected or not. Um, at the beginning, we mentioned that the people of the Jews, they resided in Egypt. Most of them were born in Egypt. Yet they had to leave Egypt. When they incarnated in Egypt, the zone that they were, the elementals had formed the bodies in such a way that they would experience. But they had to leave that particular neighborhood to another. Then you must ask yourself, was that wrong? So in these matters,
Yeah.
things have to be arranged very carefully. It is true that the physical body is tuned to the zone through which it came through birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that case, it doesn't mean that because one was born in a village, one should not leave that village, but should remain there for the rest of one's earth life. How far one has to wander depends on the volition of the human spirit. What drives it? What drives two different human spirits are different. So much as they have, incarnated in one particular zone, how they have to experience within that zone and out of that zone depends on their inner volition. So it will be wrong to limit the human spirit and say, oh, you were born in this village, you must die in this village. For one is talking of distance.
Okay.
Of course, the zones are different, no doubt about that. But can anyone precisely understand what lies, the motive force that lies within the decisions of men? Can anyone pick out the returns of what many have sown in the past? How one could have sown a seed as an Iceman, or in North America, or in South America, and the seeds haven't matured. Maybe good, maybe not so good. And he himself or herself need to taste of this. Is anyone able to see all these returns? On the way, many have, made decisions on what has been knitted for them by the elements. Only very few may have that innate ability to see them. So, whilst on earth, the human spirit is capable of experiencing. How it uses its free volition to experience is left for it. There are some who are born in a particular zone and they do not leave that zone for the rest of their life. There are some who are born in London and they spend the whole of their life in London. There are some who leave London and go to Scotland. Scotland is a slightly different zone. So the volitions of men are so varied. The best one may do is to wish them well, that they are able to redeem themselves through experiences. There are some who say we're born in London, and because of their past volitions, they now have to go back to Africa in order to experience, which experiences will help them to redeem what they had perpetrated over there. Would one say that is wrong?
Thank you, Gregory. The question that I asked earlier, the listener has come back again with his own sort of further statement. But before I put that forward, I just want to just remind the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell it: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is what it is to be homeless. I'll say it again: what it is to be homeless. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in the UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. So Gregory, as I mentioned, there's a listener responding back to what you were saying earlier, and this is the story where you talked about the Jews being in Egypt at the time of Moses. And if I just remind the listeners, you were saying that obviously the Jews were not born in Egypt. They were born in what is known as Israel at that time, and it's now again Israel now. And so they were born there, and then whether persecution or whatever, they had to leave that place, Israel, and then they went to Egypt, where we know they became basically slaves of the Pharaoh there. Anyway, and of course, as we said, there was a spiritual happening going on as well there. So this listener has now replied to say the story of the Jews, this is the time of the Moses we're talking about in Egypt, is a special case in point, which was meant to guide them to a spiritual awakening. He then says, it is therefore not superficial to, I'm not quite sure this is, I'm just going to read it out first. It is not therefore superficial to stress the importance of being in one's place of birth, where one has chosen to incarnate, in order that one may learn lessons which the spirit needs, which one's spirits need. So if I just say it again, Gregory, the story of the Jews in the time of Moses in Egypt was a special case in point, which was to guide them to a spiritual awakening. It is therefore not superficial to stress the importance of being in one's, I would say, own place of birth, where one has chosen to incarnate, in order that one may learn lessons which the spirit needs, which one's own spirit needs. So, Gregory, I know you probably said something about this already, but if you could just respond to that.
Again, it is very surprising when things are, these are special cases, this case or that case. One needs to strive to understand what lies behind it. And that is the inner volition that drives man from one place to another. How he or she has to respond to challenges. When the discussion started, we mentioned that through the volition, the inner volition of the spirit, many have to traverse different distances to gather experience. It is true that at the beginning, at the start of an earth life, one had to incarnate in a particular place. Of course, that is true. It is also a blessing if one is able to return to that place of incarnation for the radiations which pertains to that particular place where one was born, also do affect, strengthen the human spirit. That is true. But you may also consider different scenarios of a person who has incarnated in a war zone And having incarnated in that war zone, he or she senses the need to move away, having learned the necessary lessons of what it is to be in a war zone. Does it mean in moving away or from that war zone, which could be your village or your region or your country to another, does it mean one has violated any law? What really counts is how one strives to understand the concepts. The case of the Jews that were mentioned, it is not a special case that they had to leave that particular zone. And that is why one used the expression war zone. How can one develop his innate abilities to learn patience where there is war, to learn perseverance, and how to live in other places when these people are being decimated? And one will now say, because one was born in a particular zone, one should remain there for the rest of his life. It only calls for more mobile interpretation. It is true that the human spirit set out from paradise as an unconscious spirit germ and is able to return to paradise either unconscious spirit germ in which it hasn't matured enough, or as a self-conscious spirit germ. In that neighborhood, in that realm, there is no war of attrition or of destruction as you find in the case of the earth. The struggle which lies in man that allows him to go to different places to experience has been grossly distorted. So the struggle to build up or to understand concepts has been turned to the struggle of destruction, where many people's heads are chopped off because one has disagreement or one is able to reason differently. Many do not see that some things complement. No one tries to understand the other. Whereas back home in paradise, that is not the case. For one supports the other. One is for all and all is for one. So one has to be very careful when one labels some as special cases and some as this is what you must do. When the earth is purified enough, when all these sort of wrongful desires have vanished, then such a state of support will be in place such that man doesn't need to go so far away in order to experience that which will be of benefit to it.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Mena, you were earlier talking about, let's say, if I can say it correctly, basically, the word home, or even you were referring to homelessness, where on the earth now I'm talking about, and somebody is, let's say, homeless, let's say in the streets of London. Let's talk practical things, because these things give a very clear picture, and we can really, talk about it. And I know, Mene, when you were saying that, let's say somebody's homeless on the street, for you that is not really homeless. That's somebody going through the experience, let's say, based on the consequences of their past actions. It could be from even a previous life. Something could have led to that. Although mostly nobody's born homeless, except like
Yes.
Greg has mentioned, war zone or something. Most people, let's say, at least in UK, we could say people are not really born homeless. I'm sure there are only exceptional cases to that. People become homeless through whatever
Yeah.
experience that has led to them. So where I'm going here,
Okay.
Mena, you mentioned the point that is not really homeless. That's just an experience or challenge that person is experiencing. So what I want to ask on that is, should we show sympathy or empathy or compassion to such people, uh, you know, uh, when they are homeless? Because let's say, again, in the Western world, or at least in UK and Europe, let's say in the Western Europe, probably is a better word, to where there are social services, although it doesn't obviously reach everybody, but the idea is not people should not be homeless. They should be taken care of. So, so my question on this is, um, should such people really be helped? Because according to what you said, Mena, well, this is just an
Yeah.
experience they're going through, uh, you know, uh, and at the end of that, strictly, they're not really homeless because their true home, that is not a that's just the experience they're going through in that situation. So should such people be helped? And I don't know, Mena, if you want to answer this question, or should I give it to Gregory? So,
Yeah, I think it's Gregory that actually clarified the point that, homelessness is actually the absence of a permanent place of residence.
right,
So yeah, and yeah, if you ask me if such people should be helped, I look at it in two ways because they must put in an effort to understand their place and make that effort to better their condition if that is what they want to achieve. If you're homeless, you make an effort to get out of, make a home for yourself or make a better place for yourself. And the help would always come to you. That is how I would want to say it. But if you resort to begging, I don't think that is the right approach to it because you have been given the ability to um,
in fact,
work. Yeah,
yeah, Mena,
uh, yeah, go on.
if I could just add
But
to that,
go on.
in fact, when I picked this topic for this radio show today, actually,
Yeah,
I was listening to another radio station where the homeless people were talking about their own experience on the street and how they came out of that homelessness, and
yeah,
some of these people were taking drugs and so on, and
yeah,
it was really a tough life for them. And they said
yeah,
that even if people come to help them, the only way they actually got out of that situation was when they themselves, like exactly as you pointed out, wanted to be
yeah,
helped. Because
yeah,
you and I can talk to a homeless person and give him some
yeah,
money or whatever we want to do, but if that person himself doesn't want to get out of that situation, then of
yeah,
course the whole effort would be wasted. So
yeah,
yeah, because the person will just go back out again. So
yeah,
so thank you for making that point. That
yeah,
what you're saying is a two-way street, if that's
yeah,
not a pun. That you can do something, but the other person must also do something. Otherwise,
yeah.
it's like you are pulling them somewhere rather than they
Well,
also going with you together. You're both going together. So thank you
yeah,
for bringing that up. Um, Now, but at the same time, I, it's quite a, let's say, maybe,
yeah, I
yeah,
understand. Living out in the street is challenging.
yes,
I do want to draw experiences from days when I was, in school, where sometimes we go back to the boarding house and we find that the school is on vacation. Or let me say the school is not is still has an extended holiday, and then you begin to find yourself, homeless. And in that case, what do you do? Sometimes want to, you don't have money to buy a temporary accommodation. You just have to. find, sleep out in the open, and you begin to appreciate what it means to be, out in the street without a home. But in such a case, you draw the experience and, mature from it. It also you begin to reawaken in that experience as where you've come from, not necessarily your temporal home or house, but where could you find as a more permanent home? And in that state, you begin to know that you have to begin to work your way back to your spiritual uh, place of origin. I don't know if in such a situation, being out of a permanent place of residence, is beneficial. I mean, it's just a wake up call for you to be more conscious of where you've come from or how you have to live here on earth. I don't know that sometimes you are drawn to situations where you have out of your own devices caused yourself to be denied or such an opportunity, like the use of drugs, or you become financial incapacitated. But we must begin to recognize our circumstance and draw from there to offer or act for the help which we need. And as laws are in creation, the help will come when the need is greatest.
So, following from what you've said, Mena, I want to go to Gregory now. Gregory,
Yeah,
we always say you can only act in accordance with what you know, and nobody can say that I know everything. We don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. Yet, let's say we are born into a world, where, people are, let's say, there is I don't want to use the word fashion, but there is a tradition or a way of life where, you're born into a home. Let's say this is the most common case I'm talking now, not of course every case, where, so there's a pattern that we follow. You're born into a home, there's a father, there's a mother, maybe there are kids, you grow up there, and let's say it's a loving home, and then, you grow up in a good environment, and then you get a job and, school and whatever, and you become, successful, let's say, okay? All of that is earthly, right? As I say, we all act according to what we know. And we've been talking about this home, and we've highlighted that there is, yes, there is an earthly home, but actually there's something that really isn't really our home. There's something higher than that, let's say, which is our spiritual home. And I would say the majority of human beings on the earth are looking to build, they say build get a job, get a home. This is the, let's say, ambition of the majority of people on this earth. However, in the topic for tonight, we are highlighting that there's something actually deeper than, let's say, more important than that, something more permanent, as we've been saying. But the only thing is, most of us are not conscious of that home, the spiritual home. So my question, Gregory, is how can people come to know of such, that there's something deeper, that is actually the real home, and can almost, I want to say, how can you long for something which you actually not are aware of, because people long to, I use the word long, they want to have a home on the earth, a comfortable place or whatever of refuge and peace and all that. But as we have highlighted, there's something higher than that. So, how, Gregory, can people come to realize that there's something higher? The real home is actually higher than that, not on the physical earth, something in the spiritual.
If I get the question very well, on the one hand, there are the physical desiring. On the other hand, there's a spiritual longing.
Yes, but that spiritual longing is like hidden away. People are not even conscious of it. Like I say, you act according to what you know. So most of the people don't know that. They're just building, like they follow, what can I call us say? Um, don't use the word robotic. If most people build a home on the earth, and that's what they think is their goal, the ultimate goal, and that's all they think about. If some people who are spiritual, they can have let's say, a higher longing for something more than the physical. So my point really is, how can people come to the consciousness of that there's something more than the physical, which is like a habit basically. They're just following the crowd, almost like a crowd, but really the crowd doesn't know, let's say, the more ultimate goal of the human being. And how can that ultimate goal, the ultimate goal meaning the home, the spiritual home, the striving for the spiritual home, how can that be um, awakened? I think that's probably the right word, into the humanity.
Well, you mentioned awakened, which only means that they are asleep. When you have many being asleep, in spite of all the evidence of the dynamic activities, they sleep. What do you now need to wake up someone who is asleep? At best, wish them well to undergo beneficial experiences. Only those beneficial experiences can awaken them. Those beneficial experiences do not have to be palatable.
Yes, good.
They themselves may have to go through harrowing experiences. One
All
of
right.
it is like the topic which is being discussed. So the spirit must be awake. But if the spirit is asleep, each one can only wish another well. The sad story is always that to live a life on earth which is flat, in which the personality just accepts what is around it,
Yeah.
what it has found, without sort of bestirring itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That will only lead to a catastrophe.
Yeah.
That will lead to spiritual death.
Yeah.
For many, there are who have, in quotes, tons of money. But one thing should never be forgotten. Creation never made money. Man made money, or governments made money. And if a human spirit or a personality is to be awake, then it must look at the earthly side and the non-earthly side. So many who one sees as being active on the intellectually earthly side may be spiritually asleep. Many whom you might see are going through harrowing experiences, maybe more spiritually awake because they are now forced to examine the experiences because of the states in which they are, which turns out to be beneficial. There are many who have had access to so much resources, such as money, but when the time came, could not extend their stay here on earth because their weavings are such that when the time comes, they themselves will have to leave all these things behind. The idea of having to say, what can we do in order for the so-called homeless? Sometimes man is too assuming and thinks because he himself has shelter for now, he is doing well. Whereas that personality could be asleep. Whereas the other person that lacks shelter now is gradually awakening from his state. What sort of help can you give? Very simple. Wish them well. Does it mean one must always offer money? Of course not. Because you yourself are unable to account for the personality, whether that person is tied to drugs or not. However, one thing is very clear. Must you offer real help, then it has to be different from what is observed today. For many, weaken too very quickly once material help is granted them. They fall back into the old time and wish to continue what they used to do. But because of the state in which they are able to experience challenges. If one must offer help, is it money? Should one not try to offer help in form of training such that the personality becomes useful to himself? It is different from those who are unwell physically. There are many who are very well physically, yet chose to go begging and do nothing because it's much cheaper to collect from others than to develop themselves and be of help to others.
Yeah.
For if you examine it very carefully, he or she who receives, each personality receives from the bounty of creation or from the bounty of the earth. He or she who receives should make use of it and pass it on to others. So, if a particular person is not granted the opportunity to appreciate that, what then happens? It means he does not participate in the reception, making use of it, and passing it on to others. That could have been what brought him to or her to that particular state of affairs. Of course, the rays which assail each personality only help to challenge that personality in the struggle of everyday activities so as to strengthen it. So whoever wishes to leave that particular scenario must first awaken, for you do not expect someone who is asleep to participate in a physical activity like running from one place to the other. For if they are asleep and they wish it to be that way, there is very little you can do. And there are many who are spiritually asleep, who, although they have all the so-called wealth of the earth, are spiritually asleep. Do not consider those who are out of temporary shelter to be homeless, for it does not last forever. Those experiences could be temporary, and then they are out of it, having learned the necessary lesson. Those who are likely to be homeless in future are those who are so comfortable now in such a way that they are no more awake to the spiritual challenges. And before long, they become so weak, they are not sensitive to the needs of others, such that when the time comes, they find for their own state it is too late. They are unable to withstand the storms which will shake the spirit deep down, are unable to stand and progress home to paradise because they have been asleep spiritually.
Yeah, exactly. There's this recent Homeless Reduction Act of 2017, which actually compels local authorities and housing associations to reduce homelessness by offering homes to persons who, by circumstances or designs of their own, have been made are falling into a state of homelessness. Perhaps absence of drugs. They could be not paying their rent, or um, indebtedness. Well, do you think this is the right how do you call it now?
Approach?
The right, yeah, no, the right move by states to persons of these categories you now define, or what
The
should you?
idea, the notion of a state or a community is simple. One for all for one. And therefore, the notion of a community or a state, whatever classification or category one puts it, since one has stressed one for all and all for one, is to provide the opportunity for each personality that is physically fit
Yeah,
to offer
yeah,
their expertise to the whole.
yeah,
This expertise could come into fruition through the opportunities of training.
yeah.
Not that one is to remain idle.
Okay.
What has always been there in a community is that of the idle hands.
Yeah,
But wherever you have that all hands are busy and there is no idle hand, young or old, those who are physically fit, and they complement, support, then you have progress and benefit to all. Whenever you have that there are many an idle hand who contributes nothing, which contribution could come in various forms, then envy and jealousy and all sorts of things come into the fold. So it is no use to see someone and say, oh, because the person is homeless, we cannot do this, and we feel sorry. We should just jump in. The possibility should be there, which possibilities could be put in place by the state, just like you have in the fire brigade where they said, one for all for one. This thing should be taken seriously and provisions put in place. That this has not been yet, fully examined, tells us that there is room for improvement. As long as the physical body and the brain are not impeded one way or the other, then those involved that make up the community should be able to contribute something to that community. That is the purpose of community life. Otherwise, what then happens when you have a community that does not participate in its upkeep? Such communities is filled with vipers. They become so terribly indolent, not only physically, but also in spirit. They will find out what is to be criticized in others. That is of no benefit physically or spiritually. There must be something, there must be challenges which will strengthen the human spirit. It's like a very simple example of having no challenges. Have you ever seen a team in the football arena that do not have opponents to challenge them? What sort of team would you call that? Who will want to belong to that team where there are no challenges? So once you take this thing seriously and first strive to ensure that you yourself, you have something to offer to the community, and in return, you will receive. For only in giving will automatically the possibility of receiving manifest.
Yeah. Okay. Do you? I don't know if you
Mena?
will. Maybe. Yes, please.
Mena, just hold on a second. I just want to let the listeners know you're listening to
Yeah.
Bless Radio. It's Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is what it is to be homeless. What it is to be homeless. You can join in the discussion with any question or comment. The number to contact us in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 444 31366. Well, before you just continue, I just again, the listener that was there earlier has responded again, Gregory, and I know it was a while back, so I don't want to keep repeating the story, but very, very briefly, the story we're talking about was the Jews at the time of Moses living in Egypt under this, basically being slaves of the Egyptians, and the listener was pointing, saying that, Gregory, you used that as an example, or sorry, the explanation to say that yes, people were born in Israel. The Jews, those Jews were born in Israel. Whatever happened to them, they had to let's say, leave Israel when moved to Egypt, where they became slaves of the Pharaoh, and then whatever there was an awakening.
Sorry. May I cut you short? That
Yes.
is wrong.
Okay.
One referred to those people, those who came from different areas and were born in Egypt.
Okay.
When they left Egypt, they went to a different place.
Right.
As at that time, there was no Israel. They had to go to a virgin area in order to start. It wasn't that they had migrated from Israel to Egypt. Even from wherever they migrated, this had taken place a long time ago. But those who were born in Egypt, those who incarnated in Egypt, were born there. And they had to leave to another place. After all, who led them? Was it not Moses?
Yes.
Was Moses not born in Egypt? So, Moses himself, wherever, maybe his great-grandfather or someone were born in different places, but he was born in Egypt. And he had to lead them. So one should get the context right.
Yes.
And reflect on the context rather than, trying to find out, okay, maybe it's an exception.
Actually,
one should always, yes.
Yes. So continuing from that exception, that point of exception, because you're saying this is not an exception. So the listeners coming from that, responding to that point. So they're saying, so you're saying the laws of nature can be transgressed when it comes to the human being. When one looks at the animal world, do lions mix with wolves? What will be the consequences of this? And then,
well, I'm sorry. It seems that there is already confusion, and that is why from the beginning I mentioned, take these things one step at one time, such that confusion will be minimized. The discussion started when a statement was made that where one was born. And then one gave the example. What about the case of the Jews who lived in a terrible environment, suppressed, murdered, and they had to leave? Have they violated any law? Should they call Egypt home? Those who had incarnated in Egypt, will that be their home? Don't the human spirit have the possibility to move somewhere else in order to experience? How far should one move? Because you are born in a house, Must you remain in that same house for the rest of your existence on earth? Or remain in the village? Or remain in the city? Don't you have the possibility to wander somewhere else to experience what life is all about? Must you remain in the same zone without experiencing other zone? The free will is there. They may use it as they wish, but the consequences must come back. They then will then have to experience the consequences. And in the formation of concepts, we ourselves must be mobile enough to know what a concept is. It is not sufficient just to hold on to something and say, I was born in this zone, I must die in this zone. It's similar to saying I was born in a house, all right, which is in this zone. I will not leave the house, or I will not leave my village, neither will I leave my town, or leave my city, or leave my region. How far should the region be? 1 mile, 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, 1,000, 2,000 miles? Again, each human spirit must examine for themselves that which is likely to be of benefit. But the laws of creation have been perfect from the beginning, and they are time independent. Only man needs to wander to gather experiences.
I don't know. Gregory, you can't begin to look at the geographical regions and look at the species of animals that habit these different regions. They, although they have the same physical characteristic, they are not quite the same. And you might begin to see how races developed. Each race is um, they're actually independent of themselves. They are distinct and quite separate. So I think what one of the listeners is asking is that do these now have to mix, or they?
Well, the problem is making jumps, and one to keep stressing one little step at one time. Should the races mix? That, in my judgment, should be a different topic altogether. But again, one can go briefly. The races form, when you look at it from a global point of view, they form the different parts of the globe, and they cooperate through their activities. One race has something which can be offered to the other.
Yeah.
And they can walk side by side.
Yeah, agree
There
too.
is no need to just mix them. In the first case, what do they understand by mixing?
Hybrids.
Well, you see, again, this is why one has to be very careful. The first thing is to understand the laws through which each one came into existence. Then clarity automatically will come forward. But if in an intellectual way one jumps to understand the different categories which form. And then you have the scenarios where many will just use words which, strictly speaking, are not comprehensible because they can be challenged in common sense. When you say mix, one is referring to interbreeding. What are the consequences of interbreeding? Some of these things must be thought of very carefully by many persons. Only when they have looked at how each race supports itself and what each race has to offer another, only then can they understand. Take, for instance, a very clear one. Look at, say, the piano, where you have different notes. By standing on their own, the notes complement the others. But you just cannot mix up the notes, whatever mixing that means. Instead of producing music which is harmonious and making someone feel good, it may produce the opposite and wanting to murder other people. So that is only a very simple example. But the notes standing side by side will manifest such beautiful, maybe as you have in the case of a violin, a trumpet, or a piano. So these are what one may refer to as simple examples. But these things can be discussed much later so as not to confuse many things in this form of discussions.
All right, let's recap on the homeless topic. So, going forward, what do you, from right to say, what you suggest as help to be given to someone who is homeless, or what advice would you give to?
In the first case, one had rejected the word homeless and said it is those who are out of permanent, more permanent shelter.
Great. Yeah.
All right. So the word homeless is a picture. It's a bleak picture, which one should not hold on to. However, one had mentioned that it is the responsibility of the state to strive to provide opportunities for us to assess the needs of the constituents of the people. It's only when people come together you have a community. Else, each one should have been living their own individual lives.
Okay.
But to do this, there must be cooperation. The case where you have the immaturity of constituents of a community, where there are idle hands who have nothing to offer, or the case where some people have so much money, yet they do nothing, and they want to use that money as a leverage, that turns out to be wrong. There must be not money, but things of value. The individual must strive to be of value to others. Were that not the case, then there is a breakdown of community.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Sad.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We come to the end of our show, listeners. Hope you enjoyed the topic for tonight and the discussion, which was what it is to be homeless. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to say goodbye and with a few words. So I'll start with you, Mena. Anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Yeah, well, we're just sharing our, little perceptions of our understanding of the work in the light of truth. Please, it's your responsibility and make the effort to examine the work for your own benefit. Thank you. And
Yes.
have a good week ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mena. Gregory, anything you like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing everybody very well.
Thank you for that. And same from me, listeners. As Mena has mentioned, we do urge you to pick up the Grail message for yourself, examine it for yourself. What we say here is our understanding. We can only give our what we see, and really, the best thing is to go to the source of where we're coming from, and examine it with yourself, and you will get your own understanding from that. So yes, as I mentioned before, you can get a copy of the Grail message from this website, or you can get information on this website. So I'll just mention that website is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell it www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. And of course, we'll be back next week as usual, Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another topic. And we look forward to joining us again. And I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care, everybody.